That puts one side of the issue hard, sharp, and clear. Perhaps my guest can help us decide whether we're getting our money's worth or not. With me to talk about government regulations are George Stigler, Professor of Economics at the University of Chicago, Director of the Center for the Study of the Economy, and Editor of the Journal of Political Economy, and Mark Green, a longtime associate of Ralph Nader, Director of the Citizens Lobby Congress Watch, and author or editor of 8 books on government regulations and business. One of the things that didn't quite come out, I think, in the film we just watched was the fact that there are really many more kinds of regulation and regulatory agencies than were mentioned there. There's what you might call the old style of regulation, things like the Interstate Commerce Commission and the Federal Trade Commission that are really concerned with economic goals, having to do with the size and concentration of business. And then there are the newer style regulatory agencies, things like the Environmental Protection Agency or the Food and Drug Administration or the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. These are the kinds of things that were being referred to there, which are aimed at newer social goals having to do with health and safety and the environment. Can we really talk about these two types of regulation in the same breath? Are the problems more or less the same, or are they quite different?
I think actually they're quite different. The first kind that you mentioned I call cartel regulation. It's when the government often frustrates competition in the trucking industry, in the airline industry. They can be quite competitive. Consumers can understand buying a lower priced air ticket if they had the choice. Instead, the government often lets the airlines or the railroads, for example, act like a cartel and with government sanction, price fix, frustrate entrants, allow mergers. Here the marketplace could work. In the health and safety area that you mentioned, which is by and large the agencies created in the 1960s and 1970s, often the market can't work because while a consumer can understand the difference in price, they can't smell, taste, or touch the carbon monoxide that may be coming into their compartment of their car. They can't test a drug before it's marketed. Here the public expects, and understandably expects, that what they're buying is safe because they're not a laboratory.
Would you agree with that distinction?
In a broad way, although I think you can press it too far on 2 scores. One is that if there are rules about regulation in the past, such as that the Interstate Commerce Commission became independent of the passengers and of the shippers and became primarily dependent on the transport media, how do we know that the new regulations won't become independent of what consumers want? That's a generic problem in public regulation.
You mean the problem with the old-style regulators, it's often said, is that they've been taken over by those that were supposed to be regulated. Yeah. You're concerned that that could also happen in the newer areas of regulation.
They're less likely to be taken over unless it's by particular groups that lead the public interest lobbies of one sort or another, but they can become autonomous. They can say, we set the goals and it's not public consideration. I say that's a problem. I don't know how cute that'll be, but it's a potential problem. And the other thing is that it's a little odd to say that the protection of people from unreliable and unsafe things, for example, is a new function undertaken by government. It's an ancient function undertaken by economic systems. And automobiles got better between 1900 and 1965 before we had federal regulation. So in a sense, there's been a displacement of the market where the market did a fair amount of good in the past. I won't press that in the field of pollution, but I would in a field like product safety.